Both chambers of Congress are back on Capitol Hill this week. Many believe this could define not only this year, but President Biden's entire presidency. Our next guest is David Katz. He's a Democratic political strategist and former assistant U.S. attorney. Thank you for joining us tonight. Now, the Biden-Harris administration already has a bipartisan $1 trillion traditional infrastructure plan approved by the Senate, but the House won't approve it until the Senate approves the bigger $3.5 trillion human infrastructure plan. It seems that many of President Biden's campaign promises are all wrapped up in this bigger plan that's going to be part of a reconciliation bill. How does all of this actually end up working?
Well, it's a little bit confusing for people, and the Democrats are playing a game of chicken, which they have to try to get the various things that they want. As you say, there's a $1 trillion bipartisan, what you might call true infrastructure bill. It's power plants, it's fixing the highways, it's bridges, it's bringing the internet to rural and underserved communities. But in addition to that, there is the Democratic dream list. And those are all the things that they have wanted for years and not been able to get. And now, because they have a technical majority in the Senate and also in the House, and they have a Democratic president, the progressives are very eager to get that social net, that expanded social net, as they say, once in a generation coverage for things like childcare, for free community college, for various Medicare and Medicaid expansions, so that older people, for example, can get dental care, that kind of thing. The problem is that they don't have 50 Democratic senators supporting it. And so they're doing a juggling act. And the progressives don't want to let the $1 trillion bill get through because they're worried that's all they're ever going to get. And at the same time, they're not sure how much of the $3.5 trillion they can get. So I think what's in the future is they're going to have to accept, the progressives in the Democratic caucus are going to have to accept less than $3.5 trillion. And the question is, do they just reduce it for everything, or do they jettison some programs and keep others? For instance, keep the child care programs, keep the pre-K programs, for working families to send their kids to pre-K, but not get other things at all. And that's what the fight's going to be.
This sounds like a bruising fight that's going to come up between the Democrats against the Democrats, and then you've got the Republicans. And with so many priorities, including a vote on the debt limit, will Biden keep his pledge to fight for voting rights and, by necessity, approve a change in the filibuster?
Well, the debt limit is a big problem, because if the country doesn't pay its debts, it doesn't just hurt the traditional Democratic constituencies, but it hurts Republicans. And that's why the Democrats find it unbelievable that the Republicans and McConnell will not join them in raising the debt ceiling. But from McConnell and the Republicans' point of view, they want to try to pin all of this big spending, all this big borrowing on the, quote, tax and spend Democrats, right? Of course, in a way, it's very irresponsible, because what they're paying now is not the new spending, it's the old spending. It's the Trump crazy spending without ever balancing the budget, without ever collecting enough taxes to pay for what Trump was doing. But the Republicans figure if they can lay that off on the Democrats, why not? And the Democrats, of course, want the Republicans to join them. But the fact is that, again, because they have 50 votes plus Vice President Harris, they can pass the debt ceiling like they can pass anything else. It's a fiscal measure. They could pass it with 50 Democrats in the Senate and with the House majority that they have. But then again, the Republicans will pin on them, you're the big tax and spend, super borrowing, profligate Democrats.
But David, there's an other challenge that we're seeing unfold before us, and that is the fact that President Biden and Vice President Harris are effectively in office because Black and brown voters led the way, from the primary in South Carolina to turning out on Election Day. Yet, as we talk about infrastructure, debt limit, budget, we are not hearing that same energy go towards voting rights, which would essentially lock in voters for Biden and Harris and the Democratic Party. What is the holdup?
Well, I'd go even further. that the reason the Democrats have the Senate is also because of black and brown activism in Georgia, which allowed them to get those 2 Senate seats so that they have 50 senators and not that they're in the minority. The Democrats could be in the minority, and it may be that in 2022 they return to the minority in both the House and the Senate, and that's why they're so eager, especially the progressives, to get these bills through while they technically have the numbers. And so obviously people who really want this legislation, including the DACA recipients that you just talked about, are very frustrated. But there are only 50 votes. It's very, very slim in the Senate. It's as slim as it can be. And there are 2 Democratic senators who are not for the most progressive agenda. So at the end of the day, you have to trade. You have to give up things that you really, really want and give the other side something that you don't want. You know, what did LBJ say? That's before the time of most of your viewers, but he said half a loaf is better than no loaf. Now, as long as you can get 3/4 of a loaf, go for it. But at some point, you do have to accept half a loaf if you can't get a full loaf or 3/4.
Let me ask you something, David. Do you think Joe Biden has the strength to get something done the way that LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, got things done?
Well, LBJ had a massive Democratic majority. He had a supermajority in both the Senate and the House. The thing that stopped him was the filibuster, right? Especially of the Southern segregationists who kept Jim Crow, or a lot of it, in effect, even once Johnson was in power and had those supermajorities, but he had Democratic Southerners that he needed to get to those majorities. So I think that Biden is, you know, he's shown a lot of verve. I supported him in the primaries when he had 7 or 8% support. I thought he was the right guy. I still think he's the right guy. I think he can get the nation behind him. But again, he wasn't Sanders. He was the more conservative candidate. He wasn't Sanders. This is not the Sanders agenda. And he's done a lot of things I think that people are concerned, are happy about. But he's worried about other things. He's worried about things like inflation. You know, you heard a lot of black and brown people, and you heard a lot of working people, if you let inflation eat up their meager savings, right? They're not the ones who are the super savers and the super rich. They've managed to save a little bit of a nest egg, a house, or a little bit of money. And if inflation goes through the roof, you hurt an awful lot of people. That's what Senator Manchin says he's concerned about. And inflation is running very high, and it threatens working people and older people who are a big part of Biden's Democratic constituency.
I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. David Katz, a Democratic political strategist and former assistant U.S. attorney under President Reagan's administration. Thank you again, sir.